Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Got a pretty serious subject today to talk about. It's not something that any of you don't know anything about because it's been in the news and there's been a lot of buzz about it, and that is the possible chance of not just nuclear war on a global stage, but specifically a nuke being used between Russia and Ukraine. And the reason why I'm bringing this up today is because today, this afternoon, there has been a lot of buzz online, including the mainstream media even, that Russia is sending out a warning, apparently, that they have contacted several Western nations, letting them know that they have very, very solid intel, like really solid, that Ukraine is planning on detonating a dirty nuclear bomb. And the buzz goes back and forth between whether it's going to be detonated in Russia as an obvious attack on Russia, or if they will detonate it in their own country and blame it on Russia. It's interesting because it was just a few days ago that Ukraine was doing pretty much the same thing, claiming that Russia was going to blow up a bridge or a dam and other things. And this is seeming to get a lot of buzz, and there's a lot of people really worried about it. There's a lot of people online and on YouTube, you know, kind of drumming up the fear. And so I want to try to take a balanced look at this. Let's look at what some of the things that we know. I mean, we obviously don't know everything. I don't know everything that's going on. I can't keep up with it. I'm amazed sometimes at these YouTube channels that, well, most of them probably have staff that help them, but the bigger YouTube channels that they're able to just go on and on with all these details. I got a homestead and a family here to run. I don't have time to sit for hours on end developing a good video and storyline, but let's go with what we know, and that is that there seems to be this heating up over there. And I personally believe that the United States and NATO is very much wanting a reason to be in this war. They're certainly not appearing to show anything that's trying to de-escalate it. They're not trying to de-escalate in any way, it appears. There was a news report just in the last 24 hours or so from, I believe it was CBS News, talking about they were actually on location in Romania, right on the border with Russia, or with Ukraine, and they were with the 101st Airborne, and that the 101st Airborne, those Screaming Eagles, that they are planning and training to fight Russia. And in fact, in this news report, they said that they're planning on fighting Russia or even moving into Ukraine to take that fight into Ukraine. So everything that we're seeing on our side is that we are preparing for war instead of trying to de-escalate war. And if you look on the Russian side, I mean, all sides, they're all doing that. And now there's been so much talk, well, there has been from the beginning, of the possibility of nukes being used. So that's not anything that's new. But there seems to be this belief that it could happen pretty soon. And, you know, I don't want people to think it's all baloney and not take it serious. And yet, on the other hand, I don't want people to become so overwhelmed with fear that you know, we are on the brink of the nuclear war that we've all feared, and that many of us grew up, you know, doing drills at school under our school desks and running to our bomb shelters and that kind of stuff, that it's finally here. And so I want to try to get into that. And first, let's just cover with, you know, what I started off with. Is this rumor, this intel. American officials have said basically they're discounting it. They see no information, no intel that Ukraine is planning on detonating some type of dirty nuclear bomb, either in Ukraine or Russia. I will say this. Of course, I forgot to mention the Ukrainians. They're saying that, oh, this is just Russia. Russia's going to try to create a false flag. They're going to detonate one of these on their own soil and create a false flag and blame Ukraine. I honestly don't see how that would benefit Russia. I mean, Russia's already involved pretty much, you know, up to their elbows with a war with Ukraine that they may not necessarily be losing, but it's certainly posing a pretty good a force to kind of reckon with, and it's only because the United States and other NATO nations are supplying Ukraine. But the fact is that Russia hasn't been able to very easily just run over Ukraine. So why would they do this? They're already at war with them. What would it benefit Russia of detonating this nuke on their own soil and then blaming it on Ukraine so that NATO would be involved? I don't think that it would really benefit Russia right now getting NATO involved in this, mostly because Russia has just recently been drafting, doing all these conscriptions, and there's no way that all these people that they have been drafting are ready for combat. Okay, it takes a while. It takes a while to train them. Even if you fast track them, it's still going to take a while to get them ready. So I honestly can't see a really good reason why Russia would do this. I can see, though, a pretty good reason why Ukraine would do this, because then, of course, it would very possibly get NATO involved, and I could certainly see where the United States might do this, or somehow be involved in this. I think it's pretty clear that the United States, at least some parts of our government, definitely want to be involved with this, and it's across party lines. A lot of people believe that it would be very beneficial for the Democrats going into this midterm election if we were at more of a war status, because statistically speaking, the ruling power in the United States, whoever's in power at that time, during the time of war, stays in power during an election. They rarely get voted out, during wartime. So it could benefit them. Even the Republicans, a lot of the Republicans are very much war hawks on this. So my personal opinion, and I'm not taking Russia's side at all, is that it does seem like that it would benefit Ukraine and United States and NATO more if a dirty bomb was detonated, whether it be in Russia or Ukraine. This does sound a lot like some of the stories we've heard in past wars of these kind of false flags or things happening that cause the war to escalate, the war to grow. I can't, of course, say for certain that's what's happening, but it's certainly something to be focused on. Now, let's take this to a preparedness perspective when it comes to you and I. How does this affect us? Is this something that we should be, with our nails dug down, on edge, waiting for this to happen? I certainly think that it's something to be aware of, and it's something to watch. I don't think it's something that we should necessarily go into panic mode over, because honestly, we don't know how this would all possibly play out. Obviously, if one gets detonated, whether it's in Russia or Ukraine, there's no immediate threat to us from that one detonation. The question is will it spur a global nuclear war? Would it cause a global conventional war? And could it possibly cause the current administration to use it as a way to, enact some kind of martial law here in the United States? And my answer to all three of those scenarios is yes, possibly. It's possible. It's really, I think, too hard to say in how it would play out in regards to, causing an immediate war to start globally, and especially nuclear war. We'd have to just kind of watch and see what Russia does. Would this be detonated in a very critical area? Would they take it as, worthy of knowing that their reaction is going to cause a global war? Or would they just retaliate in Ukraine? Would they be able to show enough evidence or claim that they have enough evidence that this was done by NATO and not just Ukraine? There's a lot of ifs right there. And there's also a lot of ifs on how we would react to it. And so the possibility of an immediate, meaning that if you wake up tomorrow and you hear that a dirty bomb was just detonated in Ukraine or Russia, how much time do you have before that affects you? Well, it could be a long time, okay? It doesn't necessarily mean you hear a bomb go off over there that it's going to immediately start affecting us here in some way. It's possible, but it may not. I don't think personally a nuclear war means that it's immediately going to happen. I definitely think it would increase the tensions, and it could certainly lead us down that path, but I'm not quite convinced personally that it would happen immediately in response to that. I think the immediate threat to us is the panic. There could be possibly enough people, I don't think everyone, but I think enough people that could see that as, oh my goodness, a nuclear device was just detonated in Ukraine or Russia, it's on, it's bad, they've been hearing all the hype, and they go out, they start panic buying, they run to the banks and take their money out, they don't go to work that day, they fill all their vehicles up, and so there's an immediate drain on all these systems, these supply chains, fuel, banks, everything, just an overnight drain. That very well could happen. There could even be, you know, potential rioting or people just getting, because they're so on edge, they're so you know, so much anxiety that we could see fighting in stores and things like that. That, I think, is a very real scenario. And because of that potentially thing happening, the possibility of some kind of martial law lockdown could certainly happen. I think that the current administration would just love to have an excuse to do that leading up to the elections. They would, I think they would really love the opportunity to do a nationwide lockdown of some sort. So personally, I think in the immediate, that's the immediate threat that we have to focus on. It's not so much that we ourselves will be nuked. Now, turning to that point, what do we do if it looks like it's coming to that point? And honestly, the truth is we may not have much of a warning. I really don't think that our own government would warn us that, hey, you know, we just got on radar that Russia launched a bunch of ICBMs or China launched them, and you know, you've got like 30 minutes before they start landing in New York, so you should probably take cover. I doubt that that will happen. I could be wrong. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that they give people, if they're able to, enough warning. But I kind of feel that they won't. So what we have to do is take that into our own hands, which is something that I talk about all the time, our own self-sufficiency. There are some nuclear maps out there that you can look at. None of them are absolutely accurate. None of them are, because we don't know. These are just what, sometimes it's private individuals, sometimes it's former government. Some of these are actual government maps that are floating around on the internet. And these are maps that we think they might hit. The biggest problem is most of these maps aren't very current. Most of these maps were developed during the Cold War. And a lot of things have changed since then. A lot of our infrastructure's changed. A lot of the critical places that one might attack have changed, not all, but some of them. And our enemy has changed in a way. Even though it's possibly still Russia as it was in the Cold War, things have changed. So there's no guarantee that those particular spots that were put down on a map back in the 80s would still be the same places. And most likely, if you've ever watched and looked at some of these maps, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of possible places that they would, you know, drop a bomb. And it's very unlikely that many would be used. I've talked to many people that I would consider experts in this field, and most people that I've talked to feel that if we were to have a global nuclear war, you know, where they cross in the sky, that we would probably see no more than maybe 5 to 10 nukes dropped in the United States. Now, we don't know that that's for certain, but that just seems to be the belief amongst a lot of people. The thing that with that is how do we survive it? Well, nuclear war is actually very survivable. Unless you're at ground zero, and meaning a few miles from where it's detonated, it's usually a pretty survivable thing. There's many different sizes of nukes, and then of course you have to determine whether they're an air burst or a ground burst, and that makes a lot of difference too as to how far out it goes to where it's, you know, very deadly. There are websites that you can get on that you can actually put in an address and put in the size of the nuke, and it will give you on that map a pretty good information on area of which, you know, what is, you're going to die completely, you may die within a few days, and you may die early in life because of cancer. That kind of thing. Another one that I would recommend is an app called Windy. And Windy is a weather type app. And all it does is it shows the wind direction, the wind speed all over the United States. You can pull up your area and the whole state, and it'll show, you know, the wind's blowing this way, or the wind's blowing that way, or whatever. That's another good one to use. Now, of course, A lot of you are going to say, yeah, but if there was a nuke detonated, we may not have electricity, we may not have cell phones, we may not have the internet. That's all possible, but it's also possible that we would still have those things, at least for a while. And so for me, if I hear of one being detonated anywhere in an area that, you know, basically here in the Midwest and Mid-South, one of the first things I'm going to do as soon as I know where that's detonated, and let's just say, because I live in southern Missouri, so let's say that I hear of one being detonated in St. Louis. I'm going to pull up that app and I'm going to look at the prevailing winds at that time. And if the prevailing winds are moving from the south to the north, which is what they've been doing here for days now, then I know that I'm not really in any danger of fallout because St. Louis is north and east of me. And if the wind is moving from the south, then it's not going to carry any of that fallout towards me. What we have to realize is that a lot of the stuff that we've picked up in movies and TV shows when it comes to nuclear warfare and surviving it are really not very true. It isn't something that's going to cover massive amounts. You know, I'm in Missouri, and if a nuke goes off in Kansas City or St. Louis, I'm not going to feel the blast. And there's a chance that I'm not even going to feel any of the radiation from that. And we have to realize that and use our minds. It's not Hollywood. You know, nukes aren't quite as big as they are in Hollywood. And I know that many of you say, well, Russia's got that big Tsar bomb. Yes, theoretically, and they do have one that big. The odds of them using that big bomb on, you know, sites that's not needed are really slim. It's very unlikely. And so I think that we need to be very logical and clear our minds and stay calm, much like I talked about in this morning's video, in regards to the possibility of nuclear war, not just here on our soil, but in another you know, country far away, and how we would react to that, and how we would react to the government's and the people's reaction. Because honestly, at least right now, I think the greatest threat to us here in the United States is the people and the government's reaction to this. Will we get to a point that we here on U.S. soil is in direct danger of a nuke being used on us? It's very possible. Yes, I will admit to that. I'm not one of these that say, oh, it's never, ever, ever going to happen. I will admit it's very possible. I just don't think that possibility is right now in this moment. But that could change in 2 weeks. So that's why we keep prepared. That's why we keep moving forward. And that's why we keep our eyes and our ears open so that we're not asleep when things happen. Not literally asleep, but not figuratively asleep, that we are aware of what's going on. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order, to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.